Welcome to Slayer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. And welcome to my 2023 awards. This is the best and worst of hard rock and heavy metal in 2023. For me, I have 15 different categories. I'm going to list the categories down in the description down below. So if you want to play along and list yours in the comments or give your thoughts on mine, you can do that. I'm also going to be listing any videos that I've made for some of the bands and albums that I talk about here. Okay, 15 categories. Let's just jump right into it. And let's start with the big one, the album of the year. Dokken, Heaven Comes Down. I loved this record. It's full of hooks and the riffs and the melodies. It's just an album that I just kept coming back to. These songs were stuck in my head. There were so many good songs. I love catchy, melodic music. This had it all over. Best extreme metal album of the year. That, for me, I'm not going to confess to be the biggest extreme metal fan, and I found myself not listening to as much new music as I did in 2022, especially on the extreme metal side. But extreme metal album of the year for me was Tomb Mold, The Enduring Spirit. This is a band that I've been aware of and following. So when this album came out, I checked it out and I loved it. I love the production. It's got enough reverb and atmosphere to it to make it sound old school, but it's also modern enough sounding for me. It's got enough different things going on to keep me interested. There's some progressive elements. There's some jazzy elements at times. It just catchy enough things in the riffs and in the vocals. So yeah, my extreme metal album of the year, Tomb Mold, The Enduring Spirit. Album that was the biggest disappointment. This was easy for me. Rolling Stones, Hackney Diamonds. I loved the lead-off single. Was really looking forward to this record, and then it showed up, and outside of 2 or 3 songs, I just couldn't get into it. Don't like the production. Modern production doesn't do well for the Stones, for me, in my opinion. Mick Jagger's voice sounds weird and bizarre to me, like it's computers were involved or AI was involved somehow. It was just an album that just fell completely flat for me. Total disappointment. In my head, I was thinking this was going to be my album of the year. Totally didn't do it for me. Album I tried the hardest to get into, but got nowhere with. Metallica 72 Seasons. It's not that I don't like this record, but I could never get above that lukewarm feeling. My original video title was something like I'm struggling getting into this, and the struggle never changed. I thought maybe it was just going to take time. Maybe if I don't listen to it for a while, come back to it. Maybe if I listen to the last couple songs, maybe if I jump around. I mean, no matter what I did, I just couldn't really get excited about it. Didn't think it was a terrible record. I liked the lead-off single, Lux Eterna. This could have been my disappointment of the year also, but I actually, this is an okay record, but I could just never really fully embrace this and get into it. And I tried, man. I kept coming back to this record all throughout the year, and I just couldn't get over the hump with it. Most ridiculous thing I heard all year, Def Leppard, the orchestral version of Pour Some Sugar on Me from Drastic Symphonies. I'm not a fan of bands doing symphonic albums. It really has to be done right, and it has to be the right band. This is not the right band, and this is certainly not the right song to do like this. There's some sort of dramatic reading of the lyrics at the beginning with Joe Elliott, and I think there's a female vocalist there, and it sounds so ridiculous with the lyrics, love is like a bomb, baby, come and get it on, and he's trying to be all serious. Totally doesn't work, completely ridiculous. Never really listened to the rest of the record. Maybe it's just this song, but no, doesn't work for me. Best outside the box metal album discovery. That for me was a band called Spotlights, Alchemy for the Dead. And I should have done a video on this band. Discovered them in a really strange way. I was just looking at a local venue, the Orpheum, at upcoming shows, and I had just missed this by one night. And I saw Spotlights. The name didn't really jump out at me as anything that would be heavy, but I saw the album cover, which I'm showing here, was in the ad for the show, and it intrigued me, and I loved it. Don't know what to call this band. I looked it up before I did this video. I've seen people use the expression post-metal. Never heard that expression before. I guess it means like metal, but using all kinds of modern, different influences. I hear a little bit of maybe like shoegaze metal. I've heard people describe them like that too. It does have this sort of trippy atmospheric vibe to it, but it's a very dynamic record, very heavy moments, very quiet, light moments. The production is really, really cool. And it's just a really intriguing album to me. I mean, there's people that would probably argue that this isn't heavy metal, but for me, it had enough of the mood and heaviness to it for me to consider it metal, but it's definitely outside of the box. Best older album band I started to get into. I just did a Vinyl Haul video and I talked about how I got Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power. So for me, it's the Stooges. I did a video a long time ago about artists I couldn't get into, and I mentioned Iggy Pop. I had a subscriber say, hey, but you got to check out the Stooges. And I did. I started to get into Raw Power specifically. When I got this on vinyl, I listened to it over and over again. I just love the vibe, the atmosphere of this record. So the Stooges are definitely an older band that I started to really get into this year. Okay, best new young band for me, that would be Midnight Vice. Did a video on them. They're a local Tampa band, young guys, just put out an EP, part of the new wave of traditional heavy metal. An amazing singer. The guitar player is fantastic. Just a really, really cool band. Looking forward to what they're going to be doing in 2024. Make sure you check them out. Best sounding, best mixed album of the year for me. This would be Enslaved Hymnal, the Dolby Atmos mix. I've done a video on Dolby Atmos. You can check that out. You put headphones on with this record, and it is just immersive experience that just feels like you're being taken on a journey. Everything is right in its place. It's warm sounding. There's all these little things that kind of come in and out. And again, it just feels like you're sort of immersed in the record, and it has just sort of warm rolling, like you're flying over a frozen Norway or something. You know, it's cold, but yet it has this sort of warm vibe to it. And I just feel when I listen to this mix that I'm just drowning in it. It's not over compressed or anything. You can hear the bass, you can hear all the instruments. It's just great. Worst mixed sounding album of 2023. Now, I didn't want to just go and find some random band that doesn't have a budget and their album sounds terrible and laugh at them. I wanted this to be a band who I expected to have a good sounding record. So let's change this title to Worst Mixed Sounding Album That I Expected to Sound Good. Okay, we'll call it that. And for me, that was Jethro Tull, the Rock Flute album. It's weird because when I thought of this category, I was expecting it to be an overcompressed album, a Loudness Wars casualty record that I was going to pick. This album has a lot of dynamic range to it, but it is so flat and dull sounding. The guitars sound terrible. They sound like an amp sim from 20 years ago. The drums sound like a drum machine. It's just a very dull, boring sounding mix. Totally unexciting and so disappointing because I'm a huge Jethro Tull fan. Good album ruined by the Loudness Wars. Done videos on the Loudness Wars. When things are overcompressed, they have no dynamics. It's fatiguing. It's hard to listen to. That album for me was Last in Line, Jericho. Love this band, was really looking forward to this record. This could have been my biggest disappointment of 2023. But the album is just so loud, so fatiguing. I've never been able to listen to it from top to bottom. I get 2 or 3 songs into it, and I just feel like I'm getting a headache. The way it's mixed, it just has no dynamics, so disappointing. This is a band that has an old school vibe to them. A nice, warm, analog-y sounding recording would really do them well, but this is just harsh sounding. It's just difficult to listen to. So it gets my Ruined by the Loudness Wars award. Okay, best reissue of 2023. For me, that was Black Sabbath, the Live Evil remix. Totally changed how I hear this record. Now it sounds like a live album. Found myself listening to it over and over again, hearing things I never heard before, feeling energy in it that I never heard before. A runner-up for me could have been the Dolby Atmos mix of Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. That is really, really enjoyable. Another very immersive experience. The Dolby Atmos brings out little layers and details that I never heard from an album that I've listened to millions and millions of times. Best show of the year for me. This isn't a metal band. It's more of a dark wave, heavy dark wave band called Matt Black. Mattbl. They use a V for the A, BLVCK. Saw them at a dark wave goth festival called Absolution Fest. Sometimes electronic music can be really boring live if they're using too much backing tracks. And although these guys use sequencers and stuff on stage, they've got live drums, somebody playing bass, two other guys moving back and forth between keyboards, everybody kind of moving around, vocals, just a high energy, but had this intensity, this sort of dark industrial intensity to it. The atmosphere was awesome. Everybody was getting into it. I was doing my dancing to it and everything. It was just an absolute blast. I loved it. Worst show of the year, Morbid Angel. And this maybe isn't really the band's fault. But the band came on. They weren't sounding particularly good. Trey, the guitar player, started having what he said later was back spasms, like 3 songs into the set, and fell over. The band played like 1 or 2 songs without him and then just eventually canceled. But the show just had a weird vibe from the beginning. There was, it was just a weird vibe at the show. There was some ruckus early before they even came on. Then after they played, my wife and I had already left at this point, but an ambulance shows up. Apparently there was some violent incident and somebody got very, very hurt. There was no parking for the show. I had to park like 3 or 4 blocks away in a Walmart parking lot and walk, and it was just a bad show all around for me. So worst show of the year, Morbid Angel. Best metal experience of 2023 for me, that was definitely my trip to Norway and Stockholm. I have pictures from this, and I'm gonna have to put them up. When I was in Norway, I got to visit the Helvete shop where all the black metal guys used to hang out. That was amazing. Then I got to Stockholm. I got to hang out with my good friends Leif and Matthias. Matthias took me around and showed Matthias. He's been here at the channel a bunch of times. Matthias showed me around Stockholm, all these cool metal sites. He took me to where they filmed the Candlemass Bewitched video. Got to go to Nostalgia Palace with Leif. Matthias showed me all these places where Iron Maiden used to play, where they recorded this, where different bands did things and everything. It was just awesome. And I got to hang out with, did an amazing live Maiden, midweek Maiden video with the guys from Maiden A to Z, with Jonathan and Eric from Maiden A to Z, with Henrik and Matthias from Dead Cosmonaut and Maiden Stockholm. Met a new friend there, Emil, and it was just a blast talking Iron Maiden with these guys. So that was definitely my best metal experience of 2023. Okay, there you go. My 2023 Heavy Metal and Hard Rock Awards, the best and worst of. I'll list the categories down below. You give me what your thoughts on mine. If you want to go ahead and give yours for some or all of them, please do that in the description down below. Thanks to everybody for an amazing 2023. Look forward to 2024. And let's remember to keep it, to stay heavy and stay metal.